Right in front of her husband, he raped her. Emeka was tied up, unable to do anything to stop it, watching helplessly as his wife screamed and suffered. Funke, why? Funke, why did you allow the robbers to rape you? I cannot be the father to a child of a criminal. My husband, you know it wasn't my fault that I got raped. Please forgive me. In the lively city of Lagos, where the streets were always filled with noise of laughter, music and honking cars, a young couple's life was about to change forever. Funke and Emeka seemed like the perfect match. They met during their final year in the university, and from the moment their eyes met, it felt like destiny had brought them together. Everyone who knew them admired their love and how they cared for each other, but sometimes even the strongest bond faced unexpected storms. Funke was a sight to behold, tall and elegant, with a smile that could brighten even the darkest day. Her deep brown eyes always had a softness that made people feel at ease around her, and her gentle heart made her loved by many. Emeka, on the other hand, was strong and full of determination. His years of playing football had given him a solid muscular frame, and his rich dark skin shone under the Lagos sun. His laughter was the kind that made others laugh along with him. Both of them came from a loving family who were overjoyed about their relationship and looked forward to their union. They seemed like a perfect match, and nothing could come between them, so they thought. Their wedding was everything they had dreamed of. The church was beautifully decorated with bright flowers, and the sweet fragrance of roses filled the air. Funke looked stunning in her white lace gown, which flowed gracefully behind her. Her heart was filled with happiness. Emeka couldn't take his eyes off her. In that moment, he knew he was the luckiest man alive. Friends and family gathered to witness their union, dancing and singing in celebration of their love. When they exchanged their vow, they promised to love and protect each other forever, their hearts filled with hope for the future. But that night, after all the guests had left, something terrible happened. Funke and Emeka had just settled into their new home when a group of armed robbers broke in. They took all the money the couple had saved. Just as the robbers were about to leave, one of them suddenly rushed to Funke. Right in front of her husband, he raped her. Emeka was tied up, unable to do anything to stop it, watching helplessly as his wife screamed and suffered. After the robbers left, Emeka and Funke sat in silence, their hearts racing with fear and shock. Funke's face was stained with tears, and Emeka couldn't stop blaming himself for what had happened. How could everything go so wrong just a day after their wedding? It felt like their world had been shattered in an instant. As days turned into weeks, something inside Emeka began to shift. The love and happiness he once shared with Funke slowly disappeared. In its place, anger and frustration grew. Every time he looked at her, all he could think about was that night, how helpless he felt, and the shame that burned deep within him. He couldn't shake off the guilt, and he started pulling away from her. The man who once promised to love and protect her was slipping away, becoming a shadow of the husband she had married. Funke could sense the change, but she didn't know how to fix it. The bond they had was cracking, and the more Emeka distanced himself, the more broken she felt. 2 weeks later, Funke discovered she was pregnant. When she told Emeka, he was silent, his face dark. "What do you mean that you are pregnant, Funke?" Emeka shouted. "Do you know what this means?" "My husband, I didn't plan for this. I am scared too," Funke replied him. Emeka was too angry to listen. "This is just bad luck. You are destroying our lives." Funke felt her heart sank. "Emeka, please, we can figure this out together." "Together?" he yelled at her, pacing in the room. "Look at what happened. Look at what you've caused." The silence in the room was heavy. Funke could see the anger in Emeka's eyes, and it hurt. "Why are you treating me like this?" Funke whispered, tears in her eyes. I thought we were a team, Emeka." Emeka looked at her with disgust. I am not your Timo. Maybe I shouldn't have promised you anything, Emeka said, turning away. Funke felt alone and scared. I didn't want this, she said softly. But I can't blame myself, she said to herself. Emeka's anger grew stronger with each passing month. He started to hate the baby, seeing it as a reminder of the worst nights of his life. Whenever Funke tried to talk about their future or how they would raise the child, he would snap at her. I don't want anything to do with you and that baby, he shouted, his voice full of anger. It is not mine and it will never be mine, Emeka said to Funke. Funke felt heartbroken. She was scared about what the future would bring. Raising a child in a broken home filled with so much anger felt impossible. The love they once shared was buried under hurt and resentment. Emeka's heart had grown cold, leaving Funke feeling alone and desperate. She didn't know how much pain she could handle, but she knew she had to be strong for herself and for the baby. As the due date got closer, Funke felt more and more anxious. She was scared of raising a child on her own, worried that Emeka would reject her and uncertain about what the future would hold. To prepare for motherhood, she read books and attended parental classes, but the thought of doing it all without Emeka's support felt too heavy to bear. On the other hand, Emeka seemed to be in denial. He refused to talk about the baby or their future, and Funke could see the resentment in his eyes. Whenever she brought it up, it was clear that he was struggling to accept what had happened, but his anger was driving them apart. Funke often lay awake at night, worrying about what would happen if Emeka never came around. What if she had to go through this alone? The thought made her heart race. She imagined herself in the hospital, holding their child, but without Emeka there. It felt so wrong to her. One day, as Funke was getting ready for the baby to come, Emeka walked into the nursery. He stopped when he saw the baby's crib, the toy, and the tiny clothes. It suddenly hit him that it was really happening. The baby was on the way. At first, he felt guilty and sad about everything that had happened. But soon, those feelings turned into anger and frustration. The idea of being a father scared him. He couldn't shake the thought that this child would always remind him of his problem and the shame that it brought to him. Get rid of it, Emeka said to Funke, his voice cold. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want anything to do with this child of a criminal. Funke's heart sank. She knew Emeka was having a hard time, but she couldn't believe he would want to abandon their baby. She tried to explain that the baby was innocent and deserved love, but he wouldn't listen. As the due date got closer, Funke felt like she was losing everything. She was losing Emeka, their love, and her dream of a happy future. Each day was harder than the last, but she knew she had to be strong for her child. The sound of Emeka's word kept echoing in her mind. Could she really raise a child on her own? Would Emeka ever change his mind? Funke looked down at her belly and promised herself that she would fight for her child, no matter what. But she didn't know that the biggest challenge was still ahead. A few weeks later, when Funke had her baby boy, Emeka didn't come to the hospital. Funke was alone in the delivery room, holding her newborn. Tears rolled down her cheek as she looked at her tiny son. He was innocent and didn't know about all the problems around him. Despite everything, Funke felt a strong love for her baby, a love she promised to keep, no matter how hard life got. When Funke came home with the baby, Emeka was cold and distant. He barely looked at the child and acted like he didn't care. The baby's cry seemed to annoy him, and he often left the house to escape the noise. Funke felt sad and angry. She had always dreamed of this moment, but now it felt lonely. Funke named her son Oluwatobechukwuchisom, which means God is great and He is with me, because she wanted to remember that she wasn't alone in her hard times. She loved taking care of him, but it hurt her that Emeka the father didn't want to be part of their lives. Funke hoped that one day Emeka would accept Tobechukwu, but instead he seemed to grow more resentful. Whenever Emeka was home, He would ignore Funke and the baby. He wouldn't want to help with anything, leaving Funke to do it all by herself. His cold behavior hurt her deeply, and most nights, after Tobe fell asleep, Funke would cry. The happy family she dreamed of felt like a distant memory, replaced by a painful reality. As time went on, Funke felt more alone. She would sit by Tobe's crib and watch him sleep, thinking about how great life could be. Why can't Emeka see how special he is? She wondered. Whenever she thought of Emeka, memories of their happy times came flooding back, making her long for those days even more. But as soon as Emeka walked into the house, all her hope disappeared. He would pass by Funke without a word, acting like she didn't exist. Funke tried to stay strong for Tobe, but Emeka's rejection felt like a heavy weight on her heart. She couldn't help but wonder if Emeka would ever accept his son. Every day felt like a struggle, but Funke knew she had to be brave. Tobe was her joy. She would whisper to him as she rocked him to sleep, "You are loved, my child. God is with us." With every soft lullaby, Funke hoped that one day Emeka would see how wonderful their little family was and understand that love could heal even the deepest wound. But as the days went on, Emeka was now angry with both Funke and Tobe. He couldn't stand to look at them and didn't try to hide how he felt. His words became hurtful. He would often snap at Funke. "I didn't ask for this," he would shout. "This is all your fault, you this useless woman." Funke was trying to be strong for Tobe, but it was getting harder every day. She could see the darkness in Emeka's eyes, and it scared her. She worried about what he might do, not just to her, but also to their son. Still, she felt like she had no choice but to stay and hope things would get better. The once beautiful love story between Funke and Emeka had turned into a nightmare. The happy life they once dreamed of together now felt far away, replaced by the reality that was pulling them apart. Funke wondered if they could ever find their way back to the love they once had, or if this was the beginning of the end for them. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Funke got used to taking care of Tobe. Her love for him grew stronger every day, but so did the pain in her heart. Every time she looked at her son, she remembered the awful night that changed everything. She loved Tobe a lot, but the memories of how he came into her life haunted her. Some nights, when Tobe was asleep, Funke would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling. Tears filled her eyes. She would think back to her wedding nights, remembering all the dreams and hopes she had. How had everything gone so wrong? What started as a happy love story had turned into one full of sadness and regrets. Funke would often thought to herself. One night, as she lay there, a tear rolled down her cheek. Funke remembered the laughter and joy of her wedding day, surrounded by friends and family. It felt like a different world now. She was alone with her thoughts, wishing she could forget the past. The memories of that night kept coming back. The shouts, the chaos and the fear. She could still hear the echoes of that terrible moment. It felt like the past was closing in on her. Funke wanted to move on and find peace for Tobe's sake, but the weight of her sadness felt too heavy to lift. Every day, Funke tries to be strong for Tobe. She wanted him to see a brave woman who could protect him from the dark memories in her heart. But deep down, she was scared of what would happen if he ever learned the truth about how he was born. Would he understand? Would he forgive her? Funke thought to herself. Funke often thought back to the days before the attack. She remembered how happy she was to start a new life with Emeka. They laughed, they loved each other and dreamed about their future. But then, suddenly, she would think of that terrible night, the robbers, the fear, and feeling so helpless. It was too much for her to handle. Sometimes, Funke wished she could forget that night and go back to when she and Emeka were so in love. But she knew she couldn't change the past, and the memories of that night would always be with her. She felt sad, not just for Tobe, whom she loved very much, but because everything changed after he was born. The happiness they once had was now just a memory, and it hurt her to see how far away that dream felt. Emeka's attitude only made things worse. He kept pulling away from both Funke and Tobe, refusing to be part of their lives. His anger towards them grew stronger each day, and he began spending more time outside the house. Whenever he was home, the air felt heavy with tension. He spoke harshly, and his cold looks made Funke feel like a stranger in her own house. Funke often wondered what she could have done differently, how she could have stopped the terrible thing that happened. But deep down, she knew it wasn't her fault. She was a victim too, just like Emeka. Still, the guilt and regrets bothered her, making her doubt every choice she had made since that night. Despite everything, Funke tried hard to be strong for Tobe. She knew she couldn't let her own pain take over, especially since her son needed her. Every day, she focused on giving him all her love and care, hoping it would help him forget the broken family he was born into. But whenever Emeka got angry or left the house in rage, Funke felt her heart break a little more. She would hold Tobe close, hugging him tight and whispering comforting words. "It is okay, my love. We'll be alright." Even as her tears fell quietly, she tried to make their home feel safe and happy. She wanted Tobe to feel love, even when things are hard. Every moment was a struggle, but Funke kept hoping for better days. She wanted Tobe to see joy, even when life was tough, so she kept fighting for them, pouring her heart into every hug, every bedtime story, and every kind word. No matter how hard it got, she would always be there, trying to keep their little family together. Funke felt a heavy weight of regret all the time. It was like a shadow that followed her, reminding her of the life she used to dream about, but she lost it. She couldn't shake the feeling that happiness had slipped away from her. Each day felt like the same, and it left Funke feeling tired. The house was cold and empty, even though Tobe was there. Emeka didn't speak to her much, and when he did, there was no kindness in his voice. Their talks were filled with anger, and Funke could see how much he disliked her. The love they once had seemed to be gone, replaced by a thick wall of resentment that felt impossible to break. However, Tobe was growing up fast, his innocent eyes not noticing the trouble around them. Funke watched him play. His laughter sometimes broke the silence in the house, but each time she saw him smile, it reminded her of how different their life could have been, how happy they should have been. The regrets troubled her, reopening old wounds that never really healed. Funke wished she could turn back time and fix her mistake. She wanted to feel love again and make happy memories with Tobe and Emeka, but with each day that passed, it felt like that dream was slipping further away. What would it take to make things better? Would Emeka ever see her in a different way? Funke's heart ached with these thoughts, each question pulling her deeper into sadness. As she watched Tobe play in his carefree world, Funke couldn't help but wonder, could she ever find a way to be happy again, or she was stuck with her regrets forever? Funke often thought about the life she dreamed of. She pictured herself with Emeka, raising their kids together in a happy home, but now, those dreams felt like a cruel joke. Instead of enjoying their son's first word or step, they were stuck in a heavy silence that took away all hopes. At night, when everything was quiet, Funke would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling. No matter how hard she tried to push it away, she couldn't forget that terrible night. No matter how hard she tried, the robber's voice and the fear she felt played in her mind over and over again. But what hurt her the most was feeling so alone in her pain. Emeka was supposed to be her partner and her support, but he has become just another source of her pain. As Emeka grew more distant, Funke felt like she was disappearing. The lively, hopeful woman she used to be, the one who believed in love, was fading away. She couldn't remember the last time she truly smiled or felt anything other than deep sadness. When she looked in the mirror, the woman staring back seemed like a stranger, a shadow of who she was. Emeka's anger had become worse. He no longer hid how much he disliked her. His words hurt her like sharp knives. "I can't stand the sight of you," he would say, his eyes cold. "You ruined everything. You destroyed my life, and you destroyed your own life." Those words hit Funke's mind long after Emeka had left the room. She sat there, feeling like a heavy weight was pressing her chest and making it hard to breathe. No matter how much she tried to tell herself it wasn't her fault, It was tough to believe it when the person she loved most looked at her with so much anger. Funke thought about all the happy times they had together, the laugh, the dreams, the plan for the future. Now everything felt broken. What once made her smile now hurt. Why did things have to turn out this way? As she looked out the window, she couldn't help but wonder why Emeka was so angry. What had she missed? Was it really her fault she got raped? She cried to herself. Every harsh word made Funke's heart sink. She thought about the dreams they once shared and how their laughter had filled their home. Now, everything felt broken. She desperately wanted to reach out to Emeka to find the spark that once connected them, but every time she tried, he pushed her further away. When Emeka stayed out late, it was both good and bad for Funke. She felt a little relief from his harsh words and angry looks, but the house felt empty without him. Funke often sat alone in the dark, feeling sad and lonely. The silence reminded her of everything that was wrong. One night, as Funke was getting to be ready for bed, she couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She hugged her son tight, feeling his little body against hers. "I am sorry," she said softly, her voice shaking. "I am so sorry, my baby." Her tears fell onto Tobe's head as she wished she could go back in time and take away all the hurts. She wanted to give him a happy life he deserved, but time didn't stop and the past couldn't be changed. Funke knew that the pain she felt would stick with her forever. She often wondered how much longer she could live like this, how much more of Emeka's anger she could take before she broke down. The love that once filled their home felt like a distant memory, replaced by bitterness. Funke felt like she was drowning, struggling to stay afloat in the sea of sadness. Each day was a fight against the darkness, and every hot word from Emeka made the pain worse. She missed the warmth they used to share, but it seemed to be slipping away. Deep down, Funke still believed in love, but as the days went by, she worried if their love was strong enough to survive the problem they faced. With every look at the empty space next to her, Funke felt a mix of hope and sadness, unsure of what tomorrow would bring. Yet, she knew she had to keep going for Tobe, even if she struggled to do it for herself. He was the only light left in her dark world, and she couldn't let the lights go out. As months passed, Emeka's anger turned into something else. The distance between him and Funke felt huge, and instead of trying to fix their broken relationship, Emeka started looking for comfort elsewhere. The man who had once promised to love Funke was changing into someone she didn't recognize anymore. Funke noticed the changes in Emeka right away. He started leaving home early in the morning and coming back late at night. Whenever she asked where he had been, he gave short answers. "I am busy," he would say, brushing her off whenever she asked him. But Funke could see what was happening. Emeka was with someone else. Her heart sank as the truth became clear. She could feel him drifting further away, and it hurt her. Funke felt more alone each day, watching as the man she loved drifted further away. The happy memories they had together seemed to disappear, leaving behind a heavy sadness in her heart. Tobe could see the changes too. He noticed the sadness in his mother's eyes, but he couldn't fully understand. He didn't understand why Emeka was so distant and refused to play with him. Whenever he came close to him, Emeka would push him away and he would start crying and feeling sad. At first, Funke didn't want to believe it. She couldn't understand how the man she loved so much could hurt her like this, but the signs were clear. Emeka, who used to leave his phone anywhere, now always kept it in his pocket. He would step outside to answer calls, talking quietly. He started dressing better too, paying extra attention to his look, something he hadn't done in a long time. Sometimes he would disappear for 3 days. Funke's heart began to sink, knowing something was wrong, but hoping it wasn't true. One evening, as Emeka was about to leave the house again, Funke couldn't stay quiet any longer. "Emeka, where are you going to?" she asked, her voice shaking with worry. He didn't look at her, fixing his shirt in the mirror. "Out," he said, sounding cold. "Out? Where exactly are you going to?" Funke pressed further, her heart beating fast. "You have been going out every night, Emeka. What is going on? Talk to me." Emeka finally turned to face her, his expression serious. "Funke, "It is none of your business wherever I am going to," he said sharply. "I don't have to explain anything to you." Funke felt like her world was crashing down. The man in front of her, Emeka, seemed like a stranger now. He didn't look like the person she once loved. It was like he was enjoying seeing her hurt. "Emeka, please," she said softly, tears filling her eyes. "Don't do this to me. We are a family. What went wrong?" For a second, Emeka's face changed, like he was remembering the good times, but quickly, his face went cold and he looked away. "What went wrong? What went wrong?" he said bitterly. "You did, Funke. That night changed everything, and I can't." He stopped for a moment, shaking his head as if he was trying to forget it all. Tobe stood nearby, watching quietly. He could feel the tension between his parents. He wanted to help, but he fully did not understand what was going on. He was only a child. Without saying any other word, Emeka walked out the door, leaving Funke standing there, her heart broken. In that moment, she knew she had lost him completely. The man she used to love had changed, and he no longer cared about her. He had moved on, finding comfort with another woman, while she was left to deal with the broken pieces of their lives. Knowing that Emeka was with someone else was like a punch to the stomach. It felt like everything they once had was gone. The thought of him being with another woman, giving her the love he used to give her, hurt deeply. She could imagine him smiling and holding this new woman the way he used to hold her, and it was almost too much for her to handle. Funke's nights were filled with pain. She would lie awake, alone in bed, wondering where Emeka was and who he was with. Her mind couldn't stop thinking about him being with someone else, and it hurt her deeply, like a wound that wouldn't heal. When Emeka came home early in the morning, smelling like another woman's perfume, Funke felt a fresh wave of sadness. She stayed quiet, pretending to be asleep, but her mind was full of questions. She didn't ask because she knew the truth would hurt even more, and she wasn't sure she could take it anymore. Funke was once a bright and hopeful woman who dreamed of a beautiful future. At the altar, now felt like a shadow of her former self. She felt as if she was disappearing, lost in a life that had taken everything from her. Her days were filled with sadness. Every morning started with Tobe's cries, reminding her of the responsibility she had to take care of him, even while feeling so much pain. As she fed him, she would often look at the window, thinking about the life she wished she had. The dream she once cherished was gone, replaced by the heavy loneliness of her reality. Emeka started staying away from home more often, and even when he was there, it felt like he wasn't. His mind seemed somewhere else, far away from Funke and their child. He didn't talk to her much, and when he did, his words were cold and full of frustration. The love they once had was gone, leaving only distance and tension. When Emeka was around, Funke would sometimes see his phone lying on the table, screen lighting up with messages. The messages came from unknown numbers, filled with sweet words and heart emojis, things he used to send to her. Each new message was a painful reminder that he was giving his love to someone else. Funke's heart would ache as she tried to ignore the hurt, but the pain kept getting worse with every notification. Every time Emeka left the house, the loneliness she felt grew stronger. His absence became a part of their lives, but it still hurt. She was left alone to handle everything, especially caring for their child, while Emeka seemed to avoid their problem. Funke tried to talk to him, hoping he would listen, but he didn't seem to care. When she asked him to discuss their issue, he would brush her off with cold words. "Funke, why do you always make everything about you?" he would say. Then one day, he said something that shook her. "Funke, I am done with this useless marriage. You are worthless to me. You are useless." Funke was standing there, feeling lost and wondering how things had gone so wrong. Emeka walked away, leaving her to face the pain alone once again. Funke's loneliness weighed on her like a heavy blanket. Every day, it felt like it got worse. She would sit in Tobe's room, surrounded by soft toys and colorful blankets, wondering, how did I end up here? The joy she once had while preparing for her son's arrival had vanished, replaced by the pain of broken marriage. Each time Tobe smiled at her, it gave her a little glimmer of hope. But that hope quickly disappeared, reminding her of Emeka's betrayal. Whenever she saw Emeka getting dressed to go out, she couldn't stop herself from thinking, where is he going to? Is he with her? What is he doing with her? The thought of him laughing with another woman, holding her, speaking sweet words to her, tore Funke apart. One evening, she couldn't hold it in anymore, and she whispered to herself, he used to look at me like this. What did I do wrong? Is it my fault? Is it my fault that I got raped? Her heart broke each time she thought of him giving someone else love he used to give her. I was supposed to be his everything, she said softly, her voice cracking. The reality of him moving on while she remained stuck in the pain was too much for her to handle. At night, Funke would sit by the window, looking out into the dark. Her heart felt heavy with sadness. The nights were the hardest. The silence was loud, and her thoughts wouldn't let her rest. She held Tobe close, his small body warm against hers, trying to find comfort in his presence. But even his warmth couldn't take away the emptiness in her. Funke often thought about the happy times they shared. She looked at old photos of their smiles and she felt a deep sense of loss. The girl in those pictures seemed like a stranger now. It hurt her to see how different things were now. Every time Emeka came home, it felt like stepping into a fight. He would arrive late, and when Funke tried to talk to him, he would snap back at her with harsh words and look away. Can't you see that this is over? He will say coldly, we are done. His word hit her like a knife, and each rejection made her feel like she was losing a piece of herself. Raising Tobe alone felt like a heavy weight on Funke's shoulder. Some days, it was hard for her to get out of bed, feeling overwhelmed by everything. Simple tasks like feeding Tobe, changing his diaper, and making sure he was comfortable felt like climbing a mountain. Every moment she felt tired reminded her of how much her life had changed. She felt so alone, as if everyone else was moving on while she was stuck in these tough spots. Funke's dream of a happy family felt completely broken. Instead of watching Tobe grow up together with Emeka playing and laughing, she found herself alone, struggling to take care of her child. The house felt heavy with tension. Funke felt like she was always on edge, waiting for something bad to happen. Emeka's late nights had become normal, and every time he walked out of the door, her heart sank a little more. She couldn't shake the feeling that things were only going to get worse. One afternoon, Funke decided to take her son Tobe for a walk. She needed a break from the stress at home and thought some fresh air might help. The sun was shining and the day was warm, so she hoped the walk would lift her spirits, even if it was just for a short time. As they walked, Funke's mind wandered, and before she knew it, they ended up in a part of town she hadn't visited in years. The area was full of life, people laughing, shop open, and children playing. Funke couldn't help but feel a bit jealous. It seemed like everyone else was happy and carefree while she carried so much worry. Mom, Mommy, look at these people, Tobe said, his eyes wide with curiosity. Funke forced a smile. Yes, they look happy, don't they? Tobe nodded, running ahead a little to get a better look, but Funke's heart felt heavy. She wished her own life felt that easy, without so much problem to deal with. As they kept walking, the street started to change. The laughter faded, and the colorful shops gave way to a quieter, older building. Funke noticed it was getting darker, and she felt unease. Mom, where are we going to? Tobe asked, slowing down. Funke looked around. I am not sure, but let's keep going for a bit. Maybe we'll find something interesting. Just as Funke was about to turn back, something caught her eyes. Across the streets, sitting at a small cafe, was Emeka. Her heart jumped. He looked so sharp, smiling in a way she hadn't seen in a long time. But then, her stomach turned. A woman was sitting with him. She was very beautiful, with long dark hair and acting very confident. She leaned forward, laughing at something Emeka said, and she even touched his arms like they were close. Emeka didn't move her hand away. He smiled back at her, and the way he looked at her was so warm. It was something Funke hadn't felt from him in months. Funke stood there, frozen, staring at them. It felt like the ground had opened up and she was falling into it. Little Tobe shifted his arms, but Funke couldn't move. She couldn't even breathe. All she could see was Emeka with this woman, and it felt like her world was crashing down on her. They looked too comfortable, like they had done this plenty of times before. When Emeka reached out and held the woman's hands, it felt like a knife was driven straight into Funke's heart. She couldn't take it anymore. With tears blurring her eyes, Funke quickly turned away, muttering to herself, "Is this what I deserve? After everything we have been through." Her heart raced, her legs shaking beneath her, but she forced herself to walk away. Holding Tobe tightly against her chest, she hurried down the street, trying to catch her breath, but the pain was overwhelming. "How could he do this to me? How could he do this to us?" she whispered, her voice trembling. What did I do? What did I do wrong? What did I do?" Each step felt heavier than the last. Her mind was spinning with questions. How could Emeka, the man she loved, sit there with another woman like it was nothing? How could he smile, laugh, and even hold her hand while her world was crashing down around her? When she finally found a quiet place, Funke sat down on the park bench, trying to catch her breath. She had just seen something that shook her, and the tears came quietly. She held Tobe close, but even his presence couldn't calm her down. She thought about Emeka, all the time they spent together, the promise he made. It felt like a waste. She had trusted him, but now, seeing him with another woman, it all seemed pointless. Why? Emeka, why? She whispered to herself. After everything, she said this to herself while crying her eyes out. Thinking about her wedding, she could see Emeka smile, the way he looked at her with so much love. The day was supposed to be the start of something beautiful, but now everything had gone wrong, and she couldn't understand how it had happened. The man who once loved her didn't care anymore. Emeka had moved on, leaving her behind to deal with the pain. She was all alone, trying to pick up the broken pieces of her heart. Regret filled her. If only she could take back that night, maybe things would have been different. But she knew it was late. The past was gone, and the future felt empty. She wasn't sure how she could handle this sadness any longer. As the sun began to set, casting the warm light over the park, Funke wiped her eyes and stood up. She knew she had to keep going, if not for herself, then for Tobe. But the strength she once had was gone, drained by all the hurt she had been carrying. With slow and heavy step, Funke made her way home, each step reminding her of the painful truths that she was all alone. In the days that followed, Funke felt lost. She couldn't stop thinking about Emeka with that woman. The way they laughed, the way he looked at her with so much care. It was all too much. It was like the last bit of hope Funke had was gone, leaving her drowning in her sadness. Funke knew she couldn't continue pretending everything was fine when her world was falling apart. She had to confront Emeka, to hear the truth directly from him, no matter how painful it would be. The illusion of their marriage was too fragile, and she couldn't live in silence any longer. One evening, when Emeka returned home, Funke was waiting in the living room. She had already put Tobe to bed, knowing this conversation was unavoidable. Her hands trembled as she sat at the edge of the sofa, heart pounding with the weight of what was coming. When Emeka walked in, he didn't even look at her. He headed straight to the bedroom, acting like she wasn't there. His cold attitude made her frustration bubble up, and she couldn't keep quiet anymore. "Emeka!" she called out, her voice shaky but firm. He stopped at the door and turned to face her, frowning. "What is it, Funke? Why are you shouting my name like a mad woman? Why are you calling my name like that? Are you mad?" he asked, sounding annoyed. Funke stood up, her leg weak but her mind made up. "Who is she? Who is she?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Who is the woman? Who is the woman that you have been seeing behind my back, Emeka? Emeka stared at Funke for a moment, his face blank. Then he let out a deep sigh, like he was tired of something they hadn't even started talking about. I don't know what you were talking about, you this useless woman, he said in a dull voice, turning away from her. Funke felt panic rising in her chest. Don't lie to me, Emeka, she shouted, moving closer. I saw you, Emeka. Emeka, I saw you with her. You were laughing, holding her hands. Could you do this to me, Emeka? What did I do to you to deserve this? Emeka's body went stiff and he turned to face her, his eyes now cold. And so, what if I was? What will you do? He snapped at her. What difference does it make? Our marriage is finished, Funke. Wake up! Wake up and see it with your eyes, or are you foolishly blind to it? It's been over for a long time. Please, don't disturb me again. His word hit her like a slap. Funke stepped back, holding her chest, trying not to break down. Emeka, but why? Why? Why me? She whispered, tears running down her eyes. Why did it have to end like this? Why? We were supposed to be family, Emeka. Emeka just stood there, showing no sign of feeling sorry. Emeka's face grew colder as he stepped closer to Funke. His voice was low but harsh. A family? What family, Funke? This is not a family. It is a prison, and I can't stand being around you anymore. Not after what happened. Every time I see you, I am reminded of that night. That night you opened your filthy, stupid leg for that man. I see the man who ruined everything between us, and I see the child he left behind. He's a criminal, and I cannot associate myself with a criminal, Funke. Funke flinched at his word, each one cutting deeper than she expected. Emeka, please. Emeka, please, Mabino, please, she pleaded, her voice shaky. We can get through this together. We can fix things. We can make it right, Emeka. Emeka, please, Mabino, Joe. But Emeka shook his head, his face unreadable. There is no we anymore. Wake up, Funke. I be the damn man take your brain with him that night. See, let me say this for the last time. I am done with you, disgusting fool. You are nothing but a rape bait, something that anyone can use. Emeka said with anger, pointing fingers at her. I have moved on, Funke. You should do the same for your mental health, Emeka said. His word felt final, like a sharp blow, and Funke felt something inside her crumble. She had known deep down that their marriage was crumbling, but hearing him say it with such goodness made it unbearable. The man she had loved, the man she had trusted with her heart, was no longer the person standing before her. Who is she? Who is she, Emeka? Funke asked again, her voice trembling. She needed answer, something to explain the betrayal. Okay. What do you want me to? What do you want me to do? It is not my fault that I was raped on our wedding night. Emeka, please, don't do this to me. Please, don't do this to me. Don't do this to our child. Emeka looked at her, his face calm, but there was something in his eyes, guilt, or maybe just frustration. Her name is Nkechi, NK baby for short, he said quietly. The name cut through the air like a sharp knife. She's someone who makes me feel alive again. She's someone who doesn't remind me of my past, who doesn't remind me of the shameful nights, who doesn't remind me of everything I have lost. Funke, she's my better half. Funke's legs gave way and she dropped onto the sofa, shaking with tears. The room seemed to be spinning as the truth hit her. Emeka had another woman in his life, someone who had replaced her in his heart. The love they once shared, the promises they made, didn't mean anything to him anymore. Emeka looked at her for a moment, unreadable, before he turned and left the room. The sound of the door closing echoed in her mind, making the pain even worse. Funke buried her face in her hand, sobbing uncontrollable. The pain was too much. Her heart completely broken as everything she thought she knew crumbled around her. Through her tears, Funke whispered to herself, Why wasn't I enough? Kinimoshe. I gave him everything, and still he left me. Báwo ni gbogbo eléyìí ṣe bàjẹ́? How did things fall apart for me? Her voice cracked as she cried harder. I don't know how to fix this. Èmi ò mọ bí mo ṣe fẹ́ ṣe ara mi. I don't even know how to fix myself. Ọlọ́run mo ti tó, Funke said to herself while crying. As the night went on, Funke felt nothing but sadness and regret. She couldn't shake the feeling that her life was completely broken. Days passed, but for Funke, each morning, she woke up to the same empty bed where Emeka's laughter used to be. Their home, which once felt warm and welcoming, now felt cold and lonely, filling with memories that only deepened her sorrow. Funke tried to put on a brave face for Tobe, her little boy. She forced herself to smile whenever he looked up at her with his big innocent eyes. But he could feel the change. The laughter that used to fill their home had vanished. And now, Tobe often looked confused and sad, as if he knew things were different. Funke couldn't stop thinking about Nkechi, the woman who had taken Emeka's heart away. She imagined them together, laughing and sharing moments that should have been hers. Every time she thought about them, it hurt more and more. She could picture Emeka holding Nkechi's hand and kissing her, sharing the love that Funke had once known. One evening, after putting Tobe to bed, Funke sat alone in the dark room. Her mind drifted back to their wedding day, how happy they were, and all the dreams they had for the future. Now those memories felt like a painful reminder of everything she had lost. As the night got darker, Funke's sadness turned into anger. Why did this happen to her? Why did Emeka decide to hurt her for something that wasn't her fault? The more she thought about it, the angrier she got, and soon she felt like she couldn't hold back her rage. She had to talk to Emeka. She had to talk to him again to make him see how much pain he was causing her. He had walked away too easily, as if everything they built together didn't matter. But it did matter to Funke. It was her life. It was her future, and she wasn't ready to let it go without a fight. When Emeka came home that night, Funke was waiting for him in the kitchen. Her eyes were red from crying, but her expression was strong. She had made up her mind. Emeka, she said quietly, but there was something in her voice that made him stop. We need to talk. Please, we need to talk. Emeka signed, but he didn't try to walk away this time. Funke, what is it now? He asked, sounding distant. Funke took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Emeka, how long are you going to keep doing this to us? She asked, her voice shaking a bit. How long will you act like what we had meant nothing to you? Emeka looked at her. His face hard to read. After a long pause, he said, what do you want me to say? I am with Nkechi now, and I care about her. There is nothing left between us, Funke. Funke felt her heart break at his words, but she stood her ground. Emeka, how can you say that? She shouted, her voice rising. We made promises, Emeka. You promised me. Funke, things change. Emeka cut her off, his voice cold. People change. I have changed too. I am not the same man you married, Funke. Wake up and stop being stupid. You mean nothing to me. You are a public toilet, a free use for criminals, and I can't pretend anymore. His words left Nkechi breathless. It felt like her strength left her, and she sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands as the reality of his rejection hit her hard. Having Emeka in the house felt unbearable. He didn't move out as Funke had feared, but the tension between them grew thicker every day. The man who used to love her now felt like a stranger, and his coldness filled every part of their home. Then one day, out of the blues, Emeka brought Nkechi home. However, Funke was in the kitchen trying to distract herself by cooking a tasty meal for Tobe, her son. The smell of the pepper soup filled the room, but her focus broke when she heard the front door open. Emeka's heavy footstep echoed down the hallway, but soon she heard the lighter step of another woman. Funke's heart dropped as she turned to see what was happening. She saw Emeka with his hand on Nkechi's shoulder. He didn't even look at Funke as he walked past her into the living room, acting like she wasn't there. Funke felt froze, unable to understand what she was saying. Nkechi smiled, looking pleased with herself. It was clear she felt no guilt or shame. To her, Funke was just an obstacle. "Emeka," Funke finally called out, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and hurt. "Is this what you've been hiding from me?" He turned around, surprise on his face, but there was no regret in his eyes. Funke felt her heart race, filled with the pain of betrayal. She had trusted Emeka, believed in their love, and now he was standing with Nkechi like it was nothing. Nkechi laughed lightly, looking from Emeka to Funke. "Funke, you are such a sweet fool," she said with a smug smile. "You really thought you could keep him to yourself? Emeka deserved better. He deserved better." Every word hit Funke hard. How could Nkechi say that? Funke had worked so hard to build her life with Emeka, and now this woman was trying to take him away. Funke's mind was racing. She couldn't let Nkechi win. "Emeka, you need to choose," Funke said firmly, trying to keep her voice steady. "This isn't a game. You can't have both of us." The room went quiet and the tension was thick in the air as Emeka looked from Funke to Nkechi. Funke held her breath, hoping he would see the truth and choose her. Emeka finally looked at Funke, his eyes hard. "Nkechi will be staying here with us from now on," he said, his voice flat and serious. "What do you think would be the fate of Funke? Do you think it was her fault she got raped on her wedding night? I would like you to drop your thoughts on the comment section. To my returning subscribers, thank you for all your support on my previous post. And if you have not subscribed yet, just hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost much. See you in the next part of the story. Bye.